entire apartment building.
No problem.
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Deconversion Stories. And today I have the absolute pleasure of talking to Mr. Seth Andrews. You know him as the host of the Thinking Atheist podcast. And I'm sure many of you have seen that podcast, as I have as well. And right off the top, Seth, I got to tell you, it's because of your, that's my email thingy popping up. So
yeah, whatever.
It's because of when I first started watching you and you were doing interviews with people and talking to them about their deconversions that I thought, you know what, I can do this. I love talking to people. I love getting to meet people. So you are definitely the biggest inspiration for me getting to start to do this and making something with it.
No, that's an honor, man. Thank you. Thanks for saying that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I listen to your shows almost daily when I'm working in the lab at work. So, it's great entertainment, and you have a lot of really cool guests on there that I've had the privilege of listening to.
I just invite smart people and sit back and take credit for their moves. You know, that's my.
I hear you.
That's my modus operandi. You know, so.
Absolutely, I hear you. I'm kind of the same way when it comes to that sort of thing. Bring in all the smart people and make me look silly.
Just let them talk. Let them talk. Take the credit. Yeah. So.
Exactly. Well, what I do here is I talk to people about how they left the faith. And so I always start by asking, like, take us back to, I guess, your earliest memory of when you started sort of thinking to yourself that this stuff may not really be true, and on the journey that took you to becoming the atheist activist that you are today.
Well, probably to color how I got to the point of critical mass, it helps to know a little bit of just how deeply immersed my family and culture were. You know, my mother and father met at Oral Roberts University. You know, they honeymooned in the Holy Lands, right? I was conceived in Jerusalem. I kid.
Really?
I was conceived in Jerusalem. Their idea of a romantic, getaway together was to go to walk the shores of Galilee and to, those types of, that's the type of home I was raised in. It was hardcore. Mom was a Greek, and still is a Greek New Testament teacher. She wrote a Greek New Testament study guide.
Wow.
And so there was no religious small talk. It was always deep theology and absolutely God is real. And they thrust us into private school and, church. If we couldn't go to church on Sundays, we had to watch it on television. It was just Jesus everywhere. We had Christian music and we had just Christian friends, Christian everything. There was no world outside. And, it's interesting when you're a cocky kid who feels kind of empowered by that. I was a communicator as a young teenager. And so I was engaged with Youth for Christ, and I'm on stage talking to people about Jesus. Like, I don't know how to drive yet. I've never traveled. Not old enough to vote or drink, or it can't be drafted into the military or join the military. I haven't had any life experience, but they propped me up on stage to talk about Jesus. And it was only much later in my life when I realized that to a degree, I was kind of being used. This is what a nice young man looks like. This is what our future should be like. And so I would go up and just parrot my parents' religious party line, not really having done any of my own homework. And so, the church's full of these cocky young people they're sort of informed by youth ministry, and they're taught to go out and witness to their friends and try to make the world Christian. So because we're right and everybody else is wrong. And
of course, yeah.
I was that insufferable guy. I was the guy in my, I used to drive this VW Rabbit when I was in high school, and we used to have open campus. So that means you can leave the campus to go to lunch. And so I'd have friends in the car, and I subjected those poor people to Striper and Deliverance, and Res Band.
I saw them live, by the way.
Which one?
An opening. Oh, geez, this is going back to probably 80.
No. Which band? Striper, Res Band?
Striper.
Oh, okay.
They were opening for another metal act because, you can probably tell by the hair that was what I was into most of my life. But they were throwing Bibles into the audience.
Oh, yeah. The Striper New Testaments. And it had the scripture from Isaiah, you know, by his stripes we are healed, and on the front of him.
Right.
Michael Sweet, the lead singer of Stryper, has this sort of, you know, car alarm vibrato, that wah thing that he does, you know. And that's what he was known. He sang this song, this power ballad called Honestly. It's just embarrassing, you know.
Actually, a good song.
I found it embarrassing. Because I thought it was manufactured. It just sounded. So anyway, Michael Sweet did a solo album. And I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but Michael Sweet did a solo album, and we were doing a live broadcast with him at Family Christian Stores in Promenade Mall, second level Promenade Mall. Michael Sweet is there, and there's a line of people who've come in to get whatever signed and autographed and to shake hands with Michael Sweet. And I don't know what happened. About halfway through the live broadcast, all of a sudden, these guys run by at high speed and they throw something into the store. Well, it was a stink bomb. Now, if you don't know what a stink bomb is, imagine something that is designed to make everything in about a 4-block radius smell like sewage. Okay. So I smelled like shit. Michael Sweet smelled like shit. The people working at Family Christian Stores, they all smelled like shit. The product all smelled like shit for the rest of the broadcast. I've never forgotten that story. It's just seared into my mind.
That sounds horrible.
It was I don't know. Some people would think it's a metaphor for Christian music as a whole, but I'm going to let that sort of go out there in the ether, you know.
Sure.
But you know, I really didn't question. I mean, you have to think about the affirming power of the faith, of church culture. I was a Christian broadcaster when I was 22. I stayed in Christian radio for about a dozen years. So, I mean, people are telling you how great you are. People are telling you you're doing God's good work, and everybody around you, everybody who listens, everybody they know who listens. I had relatives come in from out of town. They toured this. I mean, everyone I knew was like, you're doing God's good work. We're so proud. My parents were, you know, so freaking proud of their son, and probably their accomplishment as parents, training up a child in the way that he should go, you know. And so, and there's not a lot of motivation to kick the tires when you're being affirmed all the time, and you are not surrounded by really anybody who disagrees with you theologically. I mean, we had our splinters in the church, but mostly, yes, God exists. Yes, the Bible's true. Yes, there is a heaven and a hell, and yes, you have to say the salvation prayer and all that stuff. That was without question. And if you started to question, you were a pariah, you know. And I don't know, it was a catalyst of a lot of stuff. I wrote about it in my autobiography, that it was like 2 major things and about 1,000 small things. But finally, you know, I think there's something about midlife when you get into your 30s and heading toward 40, and you become less and less satisfied with just take it on faith, or just take my word for it, or just trust it, or being blamed for not lining up. You become less inclined to please other people, and more about like, fuck it, I'm going to figure this out. And I think there was some of that in play. I think I'd come to the point where I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And so I went back to the Bible and, you know, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and read the whole damn thing all the way through. And it's an interesting phenomenon when you read the Bible, not as a love letter, right? Not in deference, but you read it a little more brave. And Christopher Hitchens sort of fostered that courage in me. You know, it's okay. Let's go in there and let's figure it out. And lightning hadn't struck him yet. So, hey, I think I'll go give it a shot, you know? And, you know, it was, and then after, you know, going through the basics of the Bible, talking to apologists, the answers that apologists offer up for defending the faith actually have a reverse effect in so many cases. The more they say stuff like, well, you know, we lived to be 900 back then because our DNA was purer. And you're just like, you know, that makes no sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, the more the apologists were, and even my own mother and father, the more they tried to tell me why it makes so much sense, the more senseless it seemed. And I took longer than many. I mean, I kind of chewed on all this for about a year and a half before I finally realized I was an atheist and said the word out loud. That was late 2008. That was freaking scary. You know, I mean, your whole life's wrapped around Christianity. Christianity is the people you know, the traditions you have, the music you listen to, your support mechanism in times of crisis. I was terrified, you know, so. that was a tumultuous time, and that was about 2008.
How did you? What did you do to sort of deal with that?
I made a website. I mean, think about. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm about 12 minutes from Rhema Bible Training Center. Now, it's Rhema's like another planet for religious people. Even people in the church are like, "Holy shit, it's Rhema Bible Training Center." This is every story I tell has a sub story. Forgive me, brother. I'm sorry about that.
You know what? I love the tracking off thing.
If you want to know what Rhema is like, I played in a Christian band when I was in high school. Okay, I was like sophomore in high school. I played keys in a band, and we had a couple of guitar players, and we needed a vocalist. And so we did what you do when you're in a Christian band. In 19 freak, I don't even know what year it was, 83. We put an ad in the paper. Christian band seeking lead singer, because of course God's not going to bring us the lead singer divinely. We have to go out and buy an ad in the newspaper. So, and of course we're going to find a great vocalist by putting a classified ad in the paper.
People still do that. I'm a musician myself. I'm actually a singer.
I mean, it probably happens, but so we get a ping back from this, and we get a call from this guy, and so we go pick him up, and I think he was from Ohio. He was this dude. It looked a little bit like John Boy from the Waltons. He had an acoustic guitar that he carried with him, and as we drive to the practice place where he's going to audition, he was telling us his story. His story was that he lived there and he heard voices, heard God in his head tell him that he needed to leave his house or apartment or whatever he lived in. And he needed to drive all the way to Oklahoma, drive up to Rhema Bible Training Center so that he could have a one-on-one meeting with Reverend Kenneth Hagin to talk about God's calling for him. So he's one of these dudes who just sort of a feather in the wind, he's hearing voices from God. He shows up at the church demanding to speak to the big wig because God's got great plans. And of course, they just turned him away at the door, like, bye, but that's kind of what Rhema culture is like. They are flighty and really, it's a very emotion-based thing. And they attract a lot of wild cards, religious wild cards. They're about 12 minutes away from me. I got Oral Roberts University. It's about a 25-minute drive. I don't know how many hundreds of churches there are in this city. Everybody is outwardly Christian. Okay. Everybody's outwardly Christian. So here I am in 2008. My family's not just believers, but devout and hardcore fundamentalist. All my siblings, my nephews, my nieces, most of my friends, I didn't have really hardly anybody. And I felt tremendous isolation. I felt like who gets me? Who would understand this? And the more I tried to talk to them, I'm so naive, right? I'm thinking all I have to do is compose an email explaining to everybody why the Bible is bullshit and showing to them what I've discovered. And yay, oh yay, there will be singing and joy, and they will all come to realization. We will all be rational together, and there will be joy as they walk away from superstition and magical thinking. We will be one in our rationality and atheism, and we will live a more rational life together. This is how naive I am. And of course, none of that happened. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And I finally thought, well, if I can't have community here, I'm going to try to make one, And so I went and secured the domain, The Thinking Atheist. The Thinking Atheist is an icon that represents the rejection of faith. Faith is not what we want. Like, I tried faith. I don't want to just believe. I want to know. So let's do that, right? Hitchens used to say it's called faith because it's not knowledge. So
that's exactly how I sign out of my shows with that statement every time.
It's such a great encapsulation of what we pursue or should pursue in our lives. So the Thinking Atheist was a representation of that. And it was also kind of a way to hide as an activist, as I was trying to get out of my Christian circles. My employers were religious. So they're going to fire me. I'm getting kind of long in the tooth to start a new career. This is all I know how to do. I was a video producer for a company that largely served churches. What are these people going to do with me? My family, I was going through a divorce at the time. Everything was falling apart. So for the first 2 years, I produced video content for YouTube under the Thinking Atheist icon without ever showing my face. I did the radio podcast for a year with people only knew my first name because I thought, well, the minute they see my face, it's, I could be on the street. I could not be able to pay my bills. This may be a financially devastating move. And this is a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but I couldn't not pursue it. I couldn't not engage with these people. And online, we immediately, I found connection with other free thinkers and rationalists and humanists all over the world. And, they helped to sort of get me through one of the most difficult times of my life. And they remain my family today. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So forgive the long answer. That's what happens when you invite a broadcaster to be a guest on your show.
It's
you're like, Seth, tell me about this. And I'm like, well, back when the earth cooled and dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I start, forgive me. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's perfectly all right, man. I love in most of these shows that I do, there's always sidetracking.
Yeah.
But it's all a part.
I have a point. I really, I try to always have a destination in mind when I tell you the story.
Of course. So tell us, I guess, more about how did you handle it with your family? Like how did they take it when they finally knew that you were announcing yourself as an atheist?
Well, picture in your mind the most conservative religious person you have ever met. Like picture in your mind, like, someone who is, dad, he always wore slacks every day. He was always very proper and mom and they never swore. There was no alcohol allowed in the house. There was nothing worldly allowed. Imagine that person. Okay. Imagine that, that level of religiosity. Okay. Now I want you to imagine taking that person out, putting them in the yard and then setting them on fire. That's what it's like to tell your parents, your fundamentalist parents, that it's an atheist. They just exploded, ignited. They just went nuclear. Because in their minds, there's a real hell. And I'm going there. And somehow they adore the God that will burn me alive forever. Now, we haven't even gotten into the physics of hell yet. What exactly is he burning if I'm spirit? And if I'm flesh and I burn to ash, does he reconstitute me and then burn me again? Or is it actually me? I don't know how all this hell stuff works. But in their minds, I'm going to hell. I'm also a blight. I am an embarrassment to them because they were charged to train up a good Christian boy. I mean, my twin sister is a devout believer. My younger sister is a devout believer. My older brother, he, plays organ in the church. I mean, everybody else is towing the line. What's the matter with Seth? We've got to fix this. So it's a matter of rescuing me from hell, but it's also, I think, an attempt to rescue their own reputations as people who didn't fail at parenting, kind of thing. And it's been pretty awful. It's amazing what happens when you see people whose ideas of love are so damaged by superstition. I mean, in their mind, love means we can't really enjoy anything else unless the eternal question is solved, unless we bring Seth back, unless the prodigal comes home. All this other stuff is just incidental. It's not important. The only thing worth talking about now is heaven and hell and Jesus's love and Satan's wiles. And I got emails and we had long phone calls and there were tears and shouts and text. God, I used to get sermon text. If there is a hell, it's a text from my father when he's worked up about Jesus. To the point where I actually had to block my own parents. I'm a believer in boundaries.
Sure.
So, you can tell me what your opinion is and that's fine. But the minute you sort of step over my threshold into my life, the minute you begin spreading negativity, I just won't abide that. I don't do that. And so you need to either accept me for who I am or at least, at the very least, respect my right to live my own life and pursue the truth on my own terms, respectfully disagree on this issue. If you won't do that and you continue to play the mom and dad card, because they've got this idea that because because I came out of mom's womb and because they raised me for all those years, that they have equity to be able to cross over boundaries because I'm not living right. Families love to cross boundaries because they think they have the right to do so.
Sure
And
thing.
I'm a genuine advocate for people who say, I get to draw the boundary where I decide to draw it. You can choose to step over it or not, but the second you do, you had better prepare yourself, because I'm going to have to close the door in your face. It is not something I want. But if you won't respect the boundary, then I'm going to draw the hard line. And that's exactly what I've done in my own life. We really don't speak. We bump into each other occasionally at a family function. There's an undercurrent of disappointment and shame and even some loathing, with mom. We don't like each other. Like dad and I can get together and we can have we can swap stories. Mom and I, you can tell with a lot of damage has been done there. And so they're 81 and 84 respectively. I don't think this is going to get worked out anytime soon. But you never know. All I'm asking is not for agreement. Just stop telling me that I'm toxic and broken and an embarrassment to the family and all these other things, and I'm going to hell. And instead focus on, hey, Seth, it's good to see you. Let's spend time together like a family should. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your parents are always going to be your parents, as my parents have told me many times. Now, fortunately, I haven't had the same reaction with my parents. I was raised Jewish, so a bit of an interesting thing. I was actually adopted. I was conceived by a Christian family, and they were very young. And my birth father's mother was devout Catholic, so having kids out of wedlock was a big no-no. So they put me up for adoption, and I was brought home on Halloween Day. And quickly circumcised. Not that matters. I don't remember, but that's what I was told.
I get that, yeah.
And so born to Christians and then raised Jewish and then ending up an atheist. And my folks were actually pretty okay with that because I grew up in a fairly secular Jewish home anyways. My dad ate bacon, right, which was a big no-no. But so luckily I still have a relationship with my folks. Well, my dad has since passed. But I do have a relationship with them, and I'm fortunate enough to actually have a relationship with my biological family as well now. So
that's terrific. I mean, that's a story we don't hear often enough. That's good.
No, that's true. My sister, who was also adopted, didn't have quite the same luck with her family. She met them and things kind of went south. I think she felt that her birth mother was trying to take her back or win her back, and my sister would have none of that. She just wanted to be friends, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, she gets to establish those boundaries. That's her right,
That's right. That's right.
We see families allow themselves so much latitude when it comes to their kids, their parents, their siblings. People, they play a family card and then they just do the craziest stuff. And I always have to shake my head, and I don't, I don't need my mother and father to become atheists. I don't have any illusions that they'll ever do that. And you want to believe in Jesus, knock yourself out.
Sure.
But this, I call it emotional blackmail, where the family says, think like me or else we will emotionally cast you out or cut you off or marginalize how we express love. And we see this all the time. We see financial blackmail. I've talked to college students.
Sure.
College is a great mind opener, right? So they come out of a homeschool environment and somehow they end up in a secular college and realize that, hey, wait a minute, a lot of this secular humanism stuff makes a whole lot of sense. And then, they tell mom and dad and they say, you know what, if you mention it again, we're going to yank your college funding. Well, now they're holding their entire future hostage.
Yeah.
Over ideological agreement. And it's insidious the way and I just don't think we as a culture should stand for it. I think we need to have more respect for other people and their individual lives and choices than that.
Sure.
And that's my biggest beef, I think, with families. The family card goes this far, but that's about it. And the rest of it, you're going to have to get permission for. So.
Can we talk a little bit about your time as a DJ?
Yeah, whatever you want. You want me
Sure.
just take you back to the beginning?
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe I've heard you tell the story before, as you know, because I've listened to the podcast many times. But you started out doing the video production for churches, and then you ended up getting into the radio, if I remember correctly.
Well, I mean, I started in FM radio in 1990, long before there was such a thing as global internet and podcasting. And so I was on KXOJ Christian Radio, 100.9 FM in Tulsa, Oklahoma for about 10 years. We played Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Michael W. Smith, that kind of stuff. At night, we played some of the edgier songs. And I was that guy, I had all the albums, and I was on stage at the concerts and had all the t-shirts. I had Petra concert t-shirts, and I was so proud. I was rocking for Jesus, man, rocking for the King, And, when I finally busted out of Christian radio and I ended up for a few years on KISS FM at Clear Channels 92.1 FM. I did a little fill-in talk radio for 1170 AM KFAQ. It was a conservative talk show. It remains a conservative talk show. And so when the host would go on vacation, Gwen Freeman would have me come in and fill in. And I was still kind of a Fox News Christian at the time. We were talking about how they're trying to take Jesus out of the holidays and we need to fight against this because this is a Christian nation. I was that guy. I was the guy who was doing all the tropes that we hear from conservative talk show hosts like Limbaugh and Michael Savage and all those other guys, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity on Fox. I was parroting all that stuff. We need to take this country back from the scourge of the godless. Oh, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And, but people ask me sometimes how I feel when I look back in time at my days in Christian radio. Do you ever still listen to some Christian music? I don't seek it out. I have a hard time enjoying it because I know first of all, I know how much marketing money's behind it. How much of this is just airbrushing real life, and it's not itself real life. I mean, a lot of the Christian artists I met are wonderful people, and a lot of them, they're just shitty human beings, absolutely terrible people who they look great on an album cover, and yeah, they're talented, but this is not Christianity. This is you're just an asshole, And
I've met a few like that working in
the
industry.
I do occasionally, like if Sweet Comfort Band comes on, okay, I'll crank up some Sweet Comfort. Oh,
roll down the window, share it with the whole neighborhood.
There are a few songs that when they pop up on my radar, they evoke certain emotions. They bring me back to a fond time in my life because people like to talk about all of the time that you spend in the faith and all the people you hang with, like it's all some weird freak show that's miserable. And the truth is very much the opposite. You feel a sense of connection, belonging, family, purpose. And granted, it's sort of spoon-fed to you. But I loved my time at KXOJ. I loved the audience there. I felt really privileged to have been a part of it. And I feel that even today, even though I have to criticize, Christian music for the lies that it sells, I'm glad I was there for it. I can better speak to the culture because of it. But radio's a bloody business, I mean, it's FM, AM radio, especially now with podcasting on the internet. It's just shrinking, and mostly it's just a rubber stamp. I mean, you listen to KISS FM in Dallas, and it sounds like KISS FM in Seattle. It sounds like KISS FM in Sacramento. It sounds like KISS FM in New York. 92.1 KISS FM with another 12 in a row on the way next. Hang on. KISS FM, KISS FM traffic. I mean, it's a soulless black hole. It's a soul-sucking enterprise, often run by corporate consultants that has almost no personality left in it, which is why I love the online broadcast, because now we get to decide how long the conversation is. We get to decide who we want to talk to. We can swear as much as we want. We don't, granted, you're a needle in a stack of needles because everybody and their dog seems to be podcasting, and I'm glad. I think it's a good thing. But, it used to be that broadcasting was the domain of the big money. The fat cats, the people who had the purse strings. You had to play 17 commercial units an hour, and you had to have meetings with consultants to talk about how you can be funnier or edgier, do this or do that, talk less, talk more here. And if you don't do that, or if the station sold or a ratings book goes down, they give you a pink slip, and then your life's really upside down. Those days are really changing, because now you and I can have a conversation that goes global like that. And we do it on our terms on the internet for a pretty reasonable cost. It's freed these conversations up. And I love that.
Yes, so do I.
When I left broadcasting in 2004, I remember signing off the last day on radio on Kiss FM. And I thought, well, this is it. This is the last day I'll ever be a radio broadcaster. And I grieved in my heart, because I thought, I'll never get a chance to do this kind of work again, not knowing that in 2010 I would discover what a podcast was, and that I would be able to, again, become a broadcaster, storyteller, encourager, producer, and to be able to accomplish more with it than I ever did on a single FM frequency. And it's been a fulfilling thing. I feel tremendously honored to be able to broadcast for the Thinking Atheist. I want to always be a good steward of that with the listeners, to never half-ass it or just phone it in, but try to make sure that they're always getting something that is, for better or for worse, the best I can do, so.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what I love about this is it's like you said, it's low cost. Basically, I buy a computer and a microphone, a camera, whatever, and I'm set up, and I can just instantly start doing this. And the freedom that comes with it is, like you say, we can swear if we want, and I do often, but just being able to interact with people in this medium has been, I don't want to say like a blessing, but you know what I mean.
I gotcha.
It's just it's been fabulous, because I've had some fantastic people on here, people that are known, people that are unknown, but all these stories, as you've once said, I've listened, to one of your podcasts, that these stories are important, and they there's a huge possibility that these kinds of stories that people are telling can help others.
It sounds like an Atari video game. That little tone conjures up a memory.
It's my phone.
It's like Mario.
Yes,
like whenever you're getting the coins.
Exactly. Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Well, it doesn't bother me any. I just when I heard it, I thought my mind is trying to connect that sound to where it came from. Like my ringtone on my phone is the theme to Breaking Bad. So every time my phone, unless it's Natalie, then it's sugar. But I just have, everyone's got sort of personalized how they are contacted by the rest of the world. I think it's awesome. So
my ringtone is the original cartoon theme song for Spider-Man. So
how's it go?
Spider-Man does whatever is Spider.
That's right. I bought Into the Spider-Verse on Blu-ray. Yes. But I have yet to watch it. I figured I'd wait till the grandkid was over. So I hear it's quite good. I know it won an Oscar for Best Animated Film.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie. I went to the theater and watched it in 3D because I had to.
Oh, I bet it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're a movement of stories. We used to be, when I first started in atheist activism, it was a lot of data points. People were like, we're going to have to go out there and counter the bad data with good data.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds great in theory until you try it. And then you realize that most people don't believe for reasons of data. They believe because they have an emotional connection to their belief system. And we as atheists need to connect with, these ideas by also engaging the heart as well as the mind and telling stories, talking about how we got where we got and why it's okay to have doubt and what that might look like. And, in radio, we used to call it a relate. If you're talking about something where someone on the other end of the dial is like, you're driving in a rainstorm and it's just kind of spitting and you're like, God, I can't get the wipers. It's either too fast or it's too slow and I can't see out the window, right? You say something dumb like that, but it's called a relate.
Mhm.
And people are like, oh God, I've had that happen. Oh, I'm home. Some solicitor knocks on my door. I mean, it's in the middle of dinner. This is my safe space. I don't know why you've got to bother me. That's a relate, because most people can relate to an encounter that's a lot like that.
Sure.
And when we tell our own stories with believers and non-believers alike, we can connect with those relates in them and allow them to feel like they're in a place of safety. And then they can make what is initially, I think, kind of an emotional connection to what we're doing. And then once we have them relaxed, and we're all relaxed, and we're talking like real people and not screaming, fuck you to every person who disagrees with us.
Right.
That's when, minds can be changed. But you don't see a lot of that in the Twitterverse these
I
days.
was just
Yeah.
going to say that. Twitter toxicity.
It's discouraging.
It's a thing.
It's
Yeah.
discouraging. I'm doing a speech around the country called "Not Everybody Who Disagrees with You is Hitler," and we talk about how quickly we turn on each other. It's weird. We live in a time when people are digging through everybody else's past to find a mistake, and then they bring it out, and they're like, "Yeah, screw that guy. They'll never forgive him." Am I saying that there are some things that some people have done that we should not forgive, or that we should walk away from? No, I'm not saying that. But how often have we taken a potential ally and turned them into an enemy for sport? How often are we tarring and feathering people in the public square because it makes us feel superior, rallying our people to our side? Everybody's shouting, everybody's shouting. And in my heart, I just grieve it, because this sort of tarring and feathering for sport, I think, diminishes us, and it cheats us of opportunities to treat each other more like human beings. Even the people who have different values or disagree with us, you're not going to reach them by telling them they're garbage. I think you have to figure out how they got there, why they think that way, understand the mechanisms for how their position originated. That's not a cheat. That is how we change minds. And then we find a way to engage the culture like that. Now, throwing a milkshake at him ain't going to do it. That's for sure. I got myself in trouble saying that the other day. Everybody had lost their mind.
Oh, boy. Well,
milkshaking is a necessary thing.
Well, if you're quick enough, you can catch that milkshake and just finish it off, right?
I'm like, how cold should the milkshake be? If it has nuts in it, is that assault because they're harder? Do you choose a flavor you don't like? Do you
What if the person has a nut allergy?
These are philosophical questions I need the answer to.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of where I've been lately.
Right on. So you're going around right now with a new talk and stuff, if I remember correctly, because I just met you recently at the Faithless Forum, and one thing I forgot to get off of you, but I'm not sure if you had any there, was a T-shirt. I wanted to get a T-shirt because, as you can tell, I collect T-shirts.
Well, I didn't have any T-shirts at Faithless Forum. It's hard for me to stock the shirts at local events when I'm running a table, because it's like men's and women's apparel, extra small, medium, large, extra large, double X, and how many different designs. Carrying those around, the inventory is hard for me. So most of the T-shirt sales I do online at the thinkingatheist.com store.
Right.
But I know people, so if you really want a shirt, I can hook you up, brother.
Oh yeah, it's my next purchase for sure. I just picked up Telltale Atheist shirt and Prophet of Zod's shirt as well. They're on the way to me right now. When he did that PBS logo ripoff thing, I thought that was just brilliant. So I had to have one of those.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really neat. So nowadays, you're not really having the best relationship with your folks. Do you still like go there for like holidays?
Yeah.
Let's say like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
I have a big family. I got a big family. And usually Thanksgiving, Christmas, and occasional they'll do a gathering. We'll all get together, but there's a large enough group that it's not like we are face to face, pistols at dawn kind of thing. It's not that kind of a vibe. It's more like there's a dozen people. Hell, on Christmas and Thanksgiving, I'll bet we have 35 people in the house. And we'll chat. How you been? But it's hard to have those conversations. And I'll tell you what is, and I can tell you this story. I changed the temperature of how I deal with family and talk about my work. And I'll tell you the catalyst for it, because my mother and father are so absolutely embarrassed. They don't want me to ever say what I do. They don't want me to speak about it. I'm Voldemort, right?
You shall not be.
Yeah, I shall, or was it The Village where they say those we don't speak of, even as they were speaking of them the whole time they're speaking of them. But that's me. Like, everybody else is like, well, I just got back from a mission trip. Yeah, we took the kids. It was great. And yeah, I'm a deacon of my church. And we got a youth gathering we're going to host. And everybody's doing their Jesus stuff, And so I had a cousin. She's like a dozen years older than me and her husband. Her name is Sue. And she lives in Chicago. And, I hadn't seen her in like 15 years. And she was coming through town. So my sister's like, hey, she's coming over. We're going to have the family over and you'll get a chance to catch up. It'd be great to have you. I'm sure Sue would like to see you. I'm like, all right, that's fine. So I got in the car and I drove there, and we are all sitting around this big table and we were just sort of catching up. I mean, I hadn't seen Sue in freaking forever, a decade and a half. And I always knew she was a little bit more on the liberal side. She works for social services, and she's very interested in alleviating suffering in this world. And
that's great.
And I know she was a Democrat, which in my family is almost worse than being an atheist. But that's all I really knew about her. She was there with her husband, Mark. So we're sitting at the table, and it's me, and then there's mom and dad, and then there's Sue and Mark, and I had my siblings there, and we're all going around. And so Sue is like, she's asking everybody about themselves. Well, tell me what you do. Well, I do work this, and here's the company, and I just did this, and I'm a deacon at my church, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, what do you do? Well, I do this. And everybody's very, very open and honest about their lives, their values, their careers, and their religiosity is tied to that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm still keeping the peace. I mean, I'm sitting there going, oh, great. They're coming around the table, and I'm a full-time activist. This is my gig. This is what I do. Like, full-time heathen is my thing. And so she came to me, and I'm thinking, mom and dad are going to hit the freaking roof, and there's going to be tears, and it's going to be chaos, and it's going to be pandemonium. This is not why I came here. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. I just want calm. So I said, she goes, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm an audio and a video producer. Self-employed. And then I just there was this awkward pause, and I kind of handed it off, and you could tell oh, hey, wonderful. Mm-hmm. But I could tell she was not satisfied with that answer. And so the person next to me was talking, and she goes, no, Seth, tell me more about what it is that you broadcast and you're audio video producer. Well, that's great. What are your shows about? What do you talk about? I talk about, the show deals with religious issues. And then I paused, and I knew she wasn't going to be satisfied with that, right? But here I am tap dancing, trying to escape chaos and tears and pain. And she's like, so then I hand it off. And finally, a third time, she comes back to me and she's like, well, tell me more about this show that you do. You talk about religious issues. And something went off in my head. I literally felt like a moment of epiphany where I realized that everybody else at this freaking table, everybody else gets to be who they are without apology. Everybody else gets to say, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Here's why I do it. Here's why I love it. This is my value system. This is that. This is that. And this is me. No hesitation, no apology. I'm the one expected to sit on my hands and keep the peace, which really isn't peace. It's more of a surrender. Right. Why in the world am I allowing these people to hold me to a double standard while they get all the latitude? And I looked her in the eye and I said, I host the most popular atheist podcast in the world.
I would have paid money to have been there to see the expression on her face.
It was, when I said it, you just felt the whole room. It became an oil painting. It was like there was no movement. And I waited for the explosion. And it did not come. It was weird. No one freaked. Mom and dad didn't break into tears, although I'm sure mom was close. We sort of segued out of that without any trouble. Well, the evening came to a close and we all said our goodbyes and I went home and they ended up going back to Chicago. Well, a few days after they got back, I get an email. Okay. And it's my cousin Sue. And she said, so my husband Mark's been going on a journey. You know, he came out of the Catholic Church, but he's really been struggling. Would you mind? She said, I'm reading your book. I'm like, oh my God. Like she must have ordered it that night. She must have gone online and had it sent to her house. So she's reading my book. And then she said, would it be okay if I gave Mark your email so you guys could talk? And of course I'm like, yeah, yes, give him my email. I would love to talk to him, you know? And he and I had some great conversations. And he was a guy who was disenfranchised with the Catholic Church and was disenfranchised with religion and was doubting and just needed to know he wasn't alone. And if I hadn't been true to myself that night, if I hadn't actually spoken my mind, and if I hadn't decided that I won't allow them to have all the privilege and hold me to a different standard, if I hadn't had that moment, I would have never known. And he would have never had the opportunity to reach out and find encouragement during a time of doubting. And I decided from that night on that, you know, if I'm ever asked what I do, I'm an atheist activist, broadcaster, and author. And I'm just going to throw it out. And if someone else loses their mind or breaks into tears, that's sort of on them. And it's not on me. I've just washed my hands of it. I'm not going to apologize for what I do. I'm proud of what I do.
Yeah, and you should be.
So that's, you know, that story is really meant to illustrate sort of where we are. It's a difficult time. We share the same geographical space. We are strangers. And I think we're both at this point pretty defiant. So, but you know, that's kind of where we are right now.
So did he end up becoming an atheist? Like
well, I've never heard him say the word. And that's fine. Hell, I don't care what you call yourself. Mostly for me, it's you need to give yourself permission to ask the hard questions. You need to give yourself permission to be different than someone else and approach things on your own terms. And if you decide that it's unsatisfactory, you have the right to decide it's unsatisfactory. And I think that's just what he needed. So whether he ends up, you know, I'm an agnostic, or I'm this, or he ends up an atheist, or he's spiritual but not religious. I mean, okay, fine. Whatever he does, my shtick is I want to make sure that he gets there organically on his own terms, and it's his journey. He's not sort of being culturally and by family and culture rather forced to parrot somebody else's party line. I don't know if he's an atheist. I do know that he's a skeptic. And he's not afraid to doubt and say that he doesn't buy it. And that's a liberating place to be, because, you know, when you get to a point when you aren't afraid to say, I don't buy that, that doesn't make any sense, or that's just wrong, and I refuse to accept it based on faith or your word. When you get to that point, it's a liberating place to be. And that your whole world opens up. And I think that's I'm guessing a little bit from the outside in. I don't have an insider perspective, but from what I can see, he's a guy, I think, who's not afraid to tap on the glass and say, "Hey, what's this all about?" And I think he's a rationalist, and I think he wants to find the truth wherever it is, and that may lead him to an atheism with a hard A, or it may, you know, lead him into other faiths temporarily. I don't really know. But the fact that he's living his life on his own terms and has given himself permission to doubt and be different, that's huge. That's huge.
Absolutely. You know, you say going into another faith. I had Aaron on the show fairly recently, a few days after I got back from the...
that boy sampled at the buffet. I love hearing him talk about all the shit that he's experimented with. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was good. Him and I kind of were talking when and I went on a very similar route to him through the whole paganism thing and you know, hunting for ghosts and stuff like that. So we kind of clicked on that. Should I had another question on that? And,
if you're in a haunted house looking for a ghost and you turn the corner and bump into Aaron, which would scare you more? because Aaron cuts a very imposing figure. And I'm thinking if it's in the dark, he walks up, he's wearing all that leather, the long hair, the Fu Manchu, the deep voice. I would be more afraid of Aaron Ra. I'm just
I think so too. I think so too. Actually, he gave me a ride to the airport on my last day, back up into Dallas, and we went for noodles together, and both of us posed out in front of this noodle house thing because the sign said "Monkeys Welcome." So we right, we'll stand in front of this and there's the two of us, huge statured guys with the hair and the facial hair, and somebody posted a little thing on the picture saying, "All right, you guys are like the Sons of Anarchy," and I'm like,
it looked like the end of the world. Aaron, he's such an imposing looking guy that I think people who haven't met him yet are a little nervous. And then you meet him and you realize he is just about the sweetest person on the planet. He has a tremendous heart for people. He has a huge sense of humor. He is just a brother. And it's amazing when I walked out of the church, I have made connections like that with beautiful people, much different than me. I don't know if I'd ever talked to someone like Aaron in my religious life, but
probably cross the street if you saw him walking down there.
I mean, we'd have been like, oh my God, what's he all about? And instead, I've had this connection to people, the spectrum of humanity, and you realize that, how much you were missing out on when you were sitting behind the sort of the closed curtains of magical thinking and fear and all those things. And so Aaron's someone I'm tremendously honored to know. And we've traveled to Australia together and we've spent a lot of time together. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I saw that you and Matt and you guys were called the Unholy Trinity, which I thought was
yeah, we took the evil down under. Yeah, it's true.
Well, Seth, I think we are closing in on the hour. So if you want to plug your upcoming stuff that you'll be, in whatever cities you'll be in, because there's quite a few people in the chat right now.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm let's see. I'm going to be in Denver, Colorado, July 27th for the Colorado Secular Conference. Looks like I'll be in Lincoln, Nebraska, August the 10th. That's a Saturday. We're working on Phoenix. Matt Dillahunty and I are going to be in Phoenix mid-November. First weekend of November, Orlando is the Florida Free Thought Conference. I think there may be one or two more. You can just go to my website, my personal website, sethandrews.net. And there's an events page or a speaking and events page, and you can see everything there as it updates.
It's bookmarked on my computer.
And it's, I'm one of those guys where it's like, I'm able to take the podcast sort of out on the road. I'm a storyteller. I love doing live audience material. You can find an archive of all my previous speeches at the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And we've got speeches like, the Satanic Panic. That was a fun one. Christianity made me talk. Christianity made me talk like an idiot. I did one about the God of cancer. We've done, I did a speech about how the church hyper targets children, and it's called Get Them While They're Young. Just, these sort of freestanding high impact presentations. It's more than just some dude under those fluorescent lights yammering, but there's usually about 130 rapid fire slides and usually a lot of humor involved in the content.
Oh, they're great.
And then
your talks are great.
I'm touring with one now called Not Everyone Who Disagrees with You is Hitler. That's what I'll be doing in all of the cities that are coming up. And then I'll release it to YouTube at some point. But they're better live. So sethandrews.net has all of that. And I hope to see you there.
Are you going to be swinging by Vancouver, British Columbia anytime soon?
If they invite me, I will. Just have the Free Thought group drop me an email and, have your people contact my people. And
well, I'm a member of the Atheist Republic up here, and they want to start doing something similar to what Pangburn Philosophy was doing. So
hopefully better.
yes.
Yeah, but I get that. Well, there's a need. There's a need for events. I think people, we have a real need. And people come to these events not because they're waiting for great wisdom from Seth. More than anything else, they're coming because we have community and a sense of family together. And there's nothing like being in the same space. And that's one of these organized events provide that. You get together and we are connected in purpose, and we can, make friends and those types of things. So, normally if someone wants to bring me in for an event, I work cheap. Mostly it's just my expenses. And then if they want to pass the hat or whatever, I'm not a diva.
Sure.
I get it. Most of these things are grassroots operations, but we just, if I can get my expenses covered and we find a date on the calendar and we just, then I'll go talk about it on the radio, and we'll have a whole bunch of folks come out. We average 100 to 250, depending on the city.
Mhm.
And we have a ball. We just have an absolutely wonderful time. People leave with smiles. We hang out. We take pictures. We sometimes have food. Sometimes there's an open bar, So it's really a lot of fun. So if anybody in that area wants to do something like that, just, look at the calendar, have them email me, and we'll talk.
All right. I have people here, so I can get
Oh,
on. I'm actually currently I'm running up against brick walls, mind you, but Shelley Segal, I've been in contact with her because she's going to be in the area towards the end of June, and she was looking for a few places to play. And I have connections that way, but unfortunately, so far, except for one place I have left to try, everyone's booked. So I haven't been able to get her something here while she's here.
She's precious.
Oh, she's awesome. I'll still get together with her and probably do a live presentation with her story. So.
Oh, hell, just, sit her down I had her on the radio a while back, and she just brought a guitar and she just sat and played and sang live. And I'm just like,
not a bad idea.
If you ought to have her bring a guitar and just have her do a few tunes for you live on the show, if nothing else happens, she's wonderfly talented and has a good heart. So I'd be watching that for sure.
I have a couple of her albums that I've downloaded actually, which is just phenomenal.
Cool.
But of course, you're introduced to the opening theme for the Atheist Experience with her.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, and speaking of that, when I was down in Texas, we were hanging out at Matt's house, and I got to tell you, he's a really cool guy, and him and Genetically Modified Skeptic Drew and myself got together and we did a little song that Drew had written, and Matt played the ukulele and Drew played the guitar, and I was singing, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of talent in that room. You guys should take it on the road. I'll be out there in the front row with a lighter, like, yeah.
What are you talking about? Bring the keyboards up there. You can join.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, we'll go in and we'll shake up the industry, my friend. So that sounds like fun. Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for letting me play along today. And I don't have any great wisdom. I'm not a PhD type who has a lot of this sort of next level content. I think I'm an encourager. I just want to encourage everybody that it's okay and that you're not alone, and that life should be good and lived on your terms, and we're all in this together, and let's just hang. And that's it's worked for me. People seem to respond to it, and it's been an honor to be a part of it and to be a part of this show. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for joining me today. And just so you know, you are an encourager because you're one of the people that encouraged me to do this. So
thank you.
It has been working.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's in the chat right now. Sorry I wasn't paying more attention, but I wanted to be. A lot of times I chat back and forth a little bit with them, but sorry I wasn't paying much attention, guys, this time around. But this was a big one for me. So I want to thank all you guys for hanging out with us. We are going to do an after party. Seth has agreed to jump in for a little bit, but he's a busy guy, so I'll be letting people in and out a few at a time. So if you're interested in saying hello for a quick minute or two, hit me up on Twitter and I'll send you a join link for that. And Seth, expect another link from me momentarily as I'll get her going right away.
I'll be ready. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And like I always say at the end of these things, like we were talking about earlier, they call it faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.